Mabuhay, this is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea, a channel about foreigners and Filipinas, mostly about marriage. Filipinas are women from the Philippines that I think still make good wives for Western men. Been talking about the 6 stages of marriage, especially in how it plays out with a woman from the Philippines. Let me know if you think it goes differently, if their stages work differently, if marriage evolves differently with a Filipina. Leave a comment here and subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea. This comes from Psychology Today. Recent article from, I'm going to skip here because I can't find the name in time. I apologize for that. It's actually Tara Denny. The first stage was the loving relationship. I call it the honeymoon stage. I think with any marriage, even with a woman from the Philippines, this is maybe your best stage. At least you want to get off to a good start. I think for us, as much as we've grown in the 8.5 years together, I still look back very fondly on the early days. The early days with when you have less decisions to make about things like having a baby or job or shifts changing, and you don't know what lies ahead. You're just glad you got married and you're trying to get along well with each other, and so things go well. Then the second stage of a marriage is, they call the honeymoon is over stage. The third one we talked about was the getting even stage. The fourth one, hanging in or hanging on. I know that doesn't sound very positive. And the fifth of the six evolutionary stages is doing your own thing, according to this article. And there they say spouses acknowledge the fantasy of expecting the other to fulfill their dependency needs. Let me stop right there. Is it a fantasy of expecting the other to fulfill their dependency needs? Well, depends. They're not going to meet all your needs, but marriage is for certain things. Certainly companionship and sexual intimacy are part of those things. But there's a ton of other things that can happen in your life, your health, your work, other relationships, bills or whatever, and can really kind of throw a monkey wrench into your happiness. And so a good wife isn't going to smooth over all of those things. I think the only thing that really can come close is a proper relationship with God, who tells us in this world there will be much tribulation. That is to be expected. And sometimes that is from your loving spouse because they're not perfect. So overall, there are some expectations for marriage, but yes, expecting them to meet all of your needs, not ever intended to happen. To continue, this realization prompts increased independence and self-confidence as individuals seek gratification alone, I assume, rather than from each other. The pursuit of happiness shifts from the spouse to external sources, marking a phase of reawakened passion, but also a recognition of the limitations of the relationship. I don't quite understand the reawakened passion part, but recognition of the limitations of the relationship, that's true. And I think that part can happen in an earlier stage, as early as the second stage, the honeymoon stage. Again, this article doesn't talk about how long you knew each other before marriage, and it doesn't talk about how long usually you move through these phases. But the important thing here is, realizing that the other spouse can't meet all your dependency needs, and you recognize the limitations of the relationship, even a foreign or Filipino relationship. And look, here's where I think the age gap kind of comes into play. You can have a big age gap, and early on, things aren't so bad. Things kind of click along. And then when he gets older, if his health declines and she's still healthy and she's providing more of a caregiving role, then that can become an eye-opener for the woman. Even if she kind of anticipated it, it's different when it actually hits. And so recognition of limitations of relationship can certainly happen before this. I think it would surely be seen in the getting even stage and the hanging on stage. That's going to happen eventually. And so you have to be ready for it and just say, look, I don't expect this person to make me happy all the time. It's not their job. They can't do that. I am responsible for some happiness too. So let me know what you think about this. There is a final stage, which I think will be a little bit more positive, I sure hope so, that marriages typically go through, and this is why I say, and you can say it about many things, marriage is a marathon, not a sprint. We sprinted to the altar, got married in only 54 days, from 9,800 miles apart. I proposed to her on day 18, but we're still together 8 years and a half later, and I wouldn't want to be with anyone else. There's no part where I have felt like, well, I wish I was married to somebody else, or I made the wrong decision. We have never hit that stage. There's always going to be difficulties, even with a fine woman from the Philippines. So stay tuned for the last part coming up, the last stage in a future video, and leave comments and subscribe here too. Love Beyond the Sea.